Hello. So I thought I'll make this video to kind of bring to attention something that I noticed in the map. Yeah. So I got this world map. Yeah. And I noticed something interesting. I've been studying this map for some time. Okay. And I've been kind of getting a little more familiar with where is what, particularly which country is where. My geography hasn't been very good. But updating, revising your lessons, what you learned in school, and you're kind of revising it, that's when you remember something better. So this helps because we're all on planet Earth. So getting a little more familiar with, this is our home. So this helps. And I noticed something interesting. I mean, you may already know this, but there is a point to what I'm arriving at. Okay. The thing is, I tend to call from here all the way till here as the food court, so like food corridor. I don't know if that was the spice trade, but there was India, South India also would be called as the spice route. But here the South India bit is not coming as much. It's more, you see, this is what I'm calling as the food corridor. Um, going to see if this also is part of it, but definitely this bit is. I'm particularly bringing your attention to a food corridor. There is a food corridor. Why do I call that as food corridor? Is I was kind of looking at where do we have different kinds of natural products kind of coming up. I will make another one about specifically about the food corridor. This video is particularly to bring attention to this place called Sthan. Yeah, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all of these sthans are around one place. And I was thinking, wow, we have a sthan place. Yeah. And these places are apparently where there are also internal strifes, difficulty with different kinds of, hmm, I cannot really say humanity cross boundaries challenges, but internal strifes, me versus you. There is this other video I made. I'll put the link of it in this one. And there I'm talking about the Sumerians. Um, they had a condition where they used to be kind of more vegetable eating people. Um, and then when their civilization, this is Sumerians are kind of well, amongst the early civilization, one of the first civilizations about there. And then there's the Akkadian civilization that came after that, and then Egypt, um, Greece. So there has been a certain. It's like the rolling several civilizations further. But Sumerians, when I looked, Sumerians is amongst the early civilizations, and I've been studying the history of mankind since some time, and I noticed there's a certain change that happened from the Sumerians, where there was an advent of meat-eating people into their culture. So until then, the soil was fertile. There used to be agriculture. And that's what I noticed there, mentioned about it. And when there were a certain inclusion of meat-eating people, the soil fertility was not as good. No. How did I arrive at that thought line? I've made a video about it, so I'll put that link. Over time, because our own bodily composition becomes a little more acidic, there is more meat metabolism requires something more from our body, and body tends to become a little more acidic, and um, not much sanitation during that time. Not like we have our plumbing and our more extensive sanitation system that we have in our civilizations these days. So probably people use the fields. And acidic composition, the soil alkalinity, soil crops were not growing as well because the soil was more acidic. That affected what food got produced there. And they had to depend more on livestock than on, animals, than on plants, because plants were not growing as much. And there were also internal strifes, internal disquiet between the different groups of people, Sumerians and the new people, different cultural disquiet. And over time, that civilization, the, the kingdom fell, so to speak. And then there was a movement into the Akkadian kingdom, civilization, a new king arises, that kind. So there has been a roll down in evolution. Civilization went into a little more meat eating. And now we have, given that there are non-veg eating people, veg. So we have different kinds of diet these days. But health has been having a little devolution. We have, over time, we have now more United Nations and more peace. We're not so much warring kingdoms. But between religions, between our thought lines, what we do when nobody's watching. Yeah. So conscience, and there are acidic compositions in our bodily metabolic processes and alkaline. So there are several dietary practices and several attempts to go beyond, let's just say, WHO's global list of diseases, which is a list that formed from across the globe when there has been more, okay, humanity cross boundaries concerns. Otherwise, they were all, several, it's like states, several states, kingdoms, and not one governing body, so to speak, to kind of look to, we are all on the same planet. So those thought lines weren't there. Couldn't be possible then. Over time, that's become possible. But WHO's global list of diseases documents the kinds of diseases there is from across the globe. And I'm thinking from a health perspective, what would help to improve that list? So we are having more healthy people. So I'm also saying that the fabric of time-space has been healing since some time, to the point that we have United Nations, those kinds of thought lines. But we still have certain conditions that still needs to be worked through. And I was looking at the sthan places, all of these sthan countries. And I was noticing they're there in the food corridor. When there is food is one of those essential things which helps people grow, do well, over time, think well. And I noticed these sthan places, they're having strife. And I kind of connected that with the Sumerians and meat. I even met a friend who said, say, in Turkey. Yeah. Turkey is also in the food corridor there. There in Turkey and some of these places, there is more drinking of tea. Yeah, they even drink tea like water. Yeah, it's a ritual, but there is more tea drinking. And I was thinking, okay, there is tea drinking people, there's coffee drinking people. There are places where they drink more coffee. And tea and coffee are diuretics. They remove water from the body. Yeah. So when water is removed, say from the soil, not just from the body, from soil, you would need to hydrate the soil for crops to grow well. Now we humans are like Earth. We have seeds, we have ideas. But for our ideas to grow and germinate, like crops in the soil, they require certain conditions by which crops grow well. When we eat the right kind of food, we nourish the right kind of fertilizers, crops grow well. When we eat the right kind of food, ideas germinate well. Otherwise, they don't have what it takes to grow healthy, wealthy wise. Tea and coffee remove water from the body. Now, if you don't have a process, a practice by which to rehydrate, and not just drinking water, I'm not just talking about just drinking water, but the tissues being hydrated. Traditional Chinese medicine, I happen to speak to a person who has been practicing it, mentioned that they even poke needles in the body to help the body not being dry. The tissues, when they go dry, there tends to be emotional processing concerns. Now, old age, for example, there are reports that say people drink less water as they grow old. And that may be one of the reasons why they're going old, why they're growing old. Yeah. But one other related factor is that the tissues go dry. And when the tissues go dry, their ability to process emotions or to even acknowledge they're there or what to do with, yeah, this is how life is. And then they go a little, yeah, they're the affective things and they are less active and participative and more at the, yeah, this, they're the influence of others and kind of more dependent and they go a little old. Dry tissues. They could drink water, but it's like the soil porosity. You could pour water, but if the soil does not have the porosity to contain the water, retain, and not just get waterlogged, but is more moving, then the roots can hold without the roots getting sogged in a lot of water or not having what it takes to hold on. Crops grow well when the composition of water and substance is it's a nice balance. So you can drink water, but if your body does not have what it takes to hold water without going into um, diabetes type 1, diabetes mellitus, yeah, insipidus, yeah, where there is more waterlogging in the body, yeah, or those kinds of processes, or too much of tea, coffee, it's draining more water, yeah, from your tissues. And your tissues are not as juicy as they need to be. Your bones are a little creaky, a little, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, those kinds of things. They're talking about not sufficient water. But it's not just about the fascia. So there's a lot of work happening about the fascia and how that maintains the hydration, the hyaluronic acid being sufficiently there in the tissues. It's not just about that. That's important too. There's also something more important, which is about draining, or rather removing the toxic effect from the body, such that old concerns that's there. Um, where there's let's just say, rotation of crops. Farmers know about rotation of crops. When they're going to be growing the same thing over and over, the soil fertility, the minerals, for example, in the soil is not the same. It loses it. But when there's soil rotation or crop rotation, and there is also, say, layering, yeah, then that maintains a certain richness of the soil. Similarly, our body, ideas remain fresh. Otherwise, we're kind of doing the same thing, nothing new, and then life is not as fresh. And it's like a house. When you're, say, regularly doing an interior decoration, regularly, say, periodically, house is, it's nice because there's something new happening, but it's not so frequently new happening that you don't know where in the world you are. There's a certain regularity to it. A body, when it's maintaining metabolism well enough, different tissues go through their own rejuvenation processes every so many times. Some say 21 days, but different tissues have their own time to rejuvenate. When that is happening, you're living a fresh, beautiful house body. The house that you're living in, what ideas you're looking at, what you are interested in, what you do. It's a natural process. Otherwise, life gets a little boring. And before long, you get bored and you're seeking liberation from life. Yeah. Such a beautiful life. You've got so much to look at, but you're kind of a little bored. Yeah. You don't have what it, because you're kind of dry inside. Your tissues have gone a little dry and you haven't really metabolized, or you're drinking too much tea coffee, or you don't walk enough as much, or you're having more meat, or the meat that you're eating is not getting digested. So it's not just about digestion. When you're eating meat, there are microorganisms in the meat digestion process, which is different from the microorganisms in vegetables eating process. Microorganisms that is required to digest vegetables is different from that of meat digestion. It's like when something is dying, the microorganisms that are going to eat on what is dying is different from the microorganisms which is going to be there on something like vegetables. Yeah, it's more a little decomposition, but they're two different organisms, animals and plants. Meat from animals, vegetables from plants. Microorganisms different. So why am I mentioning this is over time I arrived at something called as a ray of creation, where human beings evolved over several processes, several generations of becoming. See, from the elements, earth, water, fire, air, spirit, space. Over time, well, let's just say that order, so that from nothing, in the beginning there was nothing, and then there was a light, and God saw that the light was good. So, so I'm referring to the book of Genesis, but a space in which, okay, there could be something that arises, an idea, and the idea good enough. There's a space in which maybe this idea can then, like a plant that grows from the soil. It kind of looks at there, and okay, there's a space in which to grow, and then because there's a space, it grows up. Yeah, because it's safe enough to kind of grow. Yeah, when we think of it that way, each person came into existence because there was a space in which to grow. Um, so space, and, so spirit from nothing, spirit kind, and then space, and then air, and then water, and then fire, and then earth as an element, and then microorganisms, yeah, and then plant, and then animals, and then humans. It's kind of like like an evolutionary cycle, but and these cycles keep repeating because um, in maintaining being human, we need to also regularly maintain these cycles keep getting maintained because the microcosm and the macrocosm are kind of related there. Further thought lines, fine thought lines, but I will make these available on the course that I'm developing. So if you'd like to see an ordered, structured kind of a thing, if you're going to sign up for the course, you'll begin to start participating in slightly what's developing. So over time, you'll be more catch up with this thought line. But why am I making this video? Is to bring to attention that the sthans, where there is internal strife, could be coming from the meat in that food corridor. Though there is so much kind of food there, I was thinking, oh, tropical. Yeah, there is a lot of new things that can come up there, but the thought lines are not there to make use of available resources because of the meat being eaten, the microorganisms, which is having you have more doomsday thought lines because meat is kind of to death, and the microorganisms that are more functioning in your body is more death based. So you're having more doomsday thoughts. Yeah. And then um, including protein powders and desiccated things and dry thought lines. We even have food supplements in tablet and powder form. These are all dry. Thought lines are dry. What we are creating, what we are thinking in terms of, is dry. And consequently, of course, you have doomsday thoughts. You'd want to build a rocket to want to fly to Mars, yeah, because you're not able to think fresh because you may be eating meat. And You may be indulging in habits that removes water from your body. Tea, coffee, alcohol, drugs. You're not able to keep the water in. It's not just about logging it in, but to regularly metabolize such that your internal systems are regularly rejuvenating. And you say, oh, naturally, every 10 years, the bones rejuvenate. Yeah. That's a boring house. Yeah. You got a lot of stuff and that's slow. Yeah. Where you can, a lot of nice things happen. Yeah. But every 10 years? Yeah. Oh, that's like you make 5-year plans. Bones rejuvenate every 10 years. Yeah, that's like slow. Oh boy. Yeah. Bone marrow is also where you have nice immunity concerns. Yeah. Also white blood cells and several blood rejuvenating factors are there in the bone marrow. There's a bone rejuvenate, marrow functions. They are all very related. If bones are going slow every 10 years, you're having very slow new ideas. Yeah. Genius thought lines. Boy, you guys are really slow. So, my recommendation is if you can kind of reduce the amount of meat you eat, reduce the amount or increase more vegetables. Yeah. Less chemicalized um, vegetables. Yeah. And less alcohol would definitely help because the body is also functioning by endocannabinoids. There is already alcohol kind, yeah, different, a little hallucinatory substance. On top of that, when you're going to include alcohol as part of your everyday diet, your body is already having a lot of things to process. Your body is busy processing all of that. Where's the time to process all your ideas and come up with new things and then be a genius? No, your body is so busy processing food and more food, and you got to process. Ooh. It's like your immune system, instead of maintaining all the health of your body, is busy fighting diseases. Alcohol, because if there's too much of alcohol, your liver could have a problem, or your different body processes could have a problem. So your body is busy fighting that which could cause a disease than maintaining health in your body. Yeah. And we have WHO's global list of diseases. Yeah. So I will pause there. So if you like more humanity cross boundaries across the food corridor, we have the food corridor. I'll make another one about that. But um, or I will write about it on the description. Yeah. Just take a read. Yeah. Thank you so much for your kind interest. Good day.